You're tuned into news across the galaxy where they talk all things LA Galaxy with the Nag Boys. Let's start nagging.
And a pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. Welcome to News Across the Galaxy. I'm your host for tonight, Edgar Zuniga. On the ones and twos, we have Bryant. And joining us tonight, we have two very special guests. First up, representing Atlanta United, an old friend of the show and Miguel Berry's biggest fan, Tommy Moose from Scarves and Spikes.
13th favorite fan. You know there's the hardcore. Like there's actually a Miguel Berry #1 fan Twitter out there. So I'm never going to change my handle to that. So I can't be #1.
Dude, nothing beats that video, man, of you and Miguel Berry. We had no idea you guys had such a connection, though.
We're best friends.
And please welcome to the show for the first time, representing the New York Red Bulls, Mark Fishkin. Mark Fishkin, creator and host of Seeing Red podcast, celebrating 15 seasons of covering the New York Red Bulls.
Hey, as someone that has fond memories of the 1% Derby era of the Red Bulls and LA Galaxy going for it, the big stage and all the attention, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
Hey, thanks both of you for being here. Of course, we wouldn't have you guys here if it wasn't for some amazing stuff happening in MLS, the MLS playoffs, which thank you for the international window. Thank you for waiting so long to get the playoffs going like this, MLS. Hopefully, some of that buzz that we saw just 2 weeks ago will still be around for this upcoming weekend because we have seen some amazing things happening in the playoffs. Before we get into that, though, just real quick, let's talk Galaxy news. If you haven't heard already, or you've been living under a rock, Gabriel Peck was named MLS's Newcomer of the Year, an award that by far he's very well deserved. I personally have been saying for a better part of the season that I think he was not just the MVP for this team, notwithstanding what Ricky Puig does. Ricky Puig is a vital component of this club, but having somebody like a Gabriel Peck, who I felt was always like a catalyst for this club at times when maybe Ricky Puig wasn't able to get things going. Gabriel Peck would just bring something a little bit different and really get things cooking for this team. So even though he wasn't in the running for the MVP, I felt that having him been named Newcomer of the Year was more than well deserved. And for fans here in the area, in the LA area, they had an opportunity to meet him and express, their admiration and love for him because there was a meet and greet at Nikki Sports yesterday. We've seen a lot of photos floating around Twitter sphere and on Blue Sky and all these other social media feeds. And it seemed like everybody had a great time with Gabriel Peck. So if you have some of those photos, go ahead and share them. But with the Galaxy news out of the way, let's talk about what happened in the East Coast because it's one thing for Orlando to go and play against a Charlotte team that was still trying to figure things out away from their fortress in Charlotte. And as expected, as a higher seed, Orlando won that. Although it took a little bit of chicanery at the end there, Orlando did escape. With some real late heroics there from their team and some really dodgy officiating. But hey, it's MLS. It wouldn't be MLS if we didn't have some dodgy officiating, right? And of course, but the big talk of that weekend though was earlier what the Red Bulls did to Columbus Crew, because a lot of people didn't expect the Red Bulls to do much, especially out here in the West Coast. We don't pay too much attention to what's going on in the East. I mean, those of us that are MLS sickos do. But hey, a lot of people were saying that the series between NYCFC and FC Cincinnati was kind of on a knife, and the expectation was that Cincinnati was kind of on a downturn, and the Pigeons were going to go in there and defeat them, and it so happened that way. Some people saw it as an upset. Nah, not so much an upset. The Pigeons came in there a little bit hotter, and FC Cincinnati just kind of fell apart at the worst time. They have a lot of issues going on behind the scenes as well, with Lucho Acosta saying that he wasn't. He's probably thinking about moving on, and he was actually considering moving on even before the game. In that series. So FC Cincinnati has things to figure out. The Pigeons are moving on, and guess they're going to face against the Red Bulls. Now, the New York Red Bulls finished seventh in a very top-heavy, crowded Eastern Conference table, which was an improvement over eighth in 2023. A season that ended with consecutive losses to FC Cincinnati in a best of three first round series after crushing Charlotte FC in a wild card match. Mark, what was the vibe around the club and the fan base at the end of that 2023 season?
At the end of the 23 season?
Yeah.
Well, Cincinnati was a juggernaut at the end of 2023, and they were the top seed in the East, and New York was absolutely the underdog against them. I think the Red Bulls had to win out their last 4 or 5 games in order to even reach the playoffs in 23, and they reached the playoffs only through the 94th minute penalty kick by John Tolkien. Got them past Nashville on decision day, and in that game, they wound up dropping a house on Charlotte in the wild card game. I don't think the Red Bulls felt, and Red Bulls fans felt that there was any divine right to knock off the top seed in the East. And sure enough, they didn't. I mean, the way they lost at home in the second game of that series wasn't great. It was I think an 8 or 9 round penalty kick shootout. And for, I think, a lot of fans, it was, well, more of the same. It was the 5th year in a row that the team had gone out in the first round of the playoffs. And coming into this year, the arrival of Emil Forsberg and the return of Lewis Morgan, who had been out most of 2023 with injuries, really meant that the team has completely leveled up. And you saw the importance of Forsberg during the second half of the season when he was battling a lower leg injury. I mean, New York won only a single time down the stretch in their last, 8 to 10 games. And so New York went into the Columbus series. You had mentioned, Edgar, the folks out west. Most of the people were picking Columbus. I don't think you understand. We tried really hard on Seeing Red to find a single human that was picking the Red Bulls to upset Columbus, and I have to tell you, we didn't find one. Every single pundit, anyone that was paying attention to this game, the series in the national or local soccer press said that New York really had no chance. What we learned is that the decision day opponent was Columbus playing in New York, and Columbus took a 2-0 lead 10 minutes into that game on decision day. And the Red Bulls changed their tactics in the second half of that game and fought back from 2-0 down to 2-2. They wound up conceding late. But nevertheless, I think there was a stretch of 20 to 25 minutes where New York completely controlled the match. And I think it gave Sandro Schwartz and the players the confidence to say, hey, we can play with these guys. Yes, that obviously from a pure on-field talent level, Columbus was more gifted. You could make the argument that Wilfried Nancy is a phenomenal coach, but he really didn't have an answer for New York playing 3 in the back with the 2 wingbacks on either side. And by nicking an early goal in Columbus in game 1, and then game 2, which was probably the most meaningful playoff game that New York has played at Red Bull Arena since 2018. They went up, they went down, they came back, and Carlos Coronel stood on his head in the penalty kick shootout. I mean, New York is absolutely playing with house money in their game against NYC. It's the first time these two teams are meeting in the postseason, which is, I think, fraught with a lot of danger for both fan bases, because nobody wants to walk away the loser in this match Saturday at Citi Field. So it's going to be it's going to be a whole lot of fun, and the Red Bulls will feel confident going into the match.
In late of 2023, that's the reason I was mentioning 2023, because in December 14th of last year, the Red Bulls announced that Sandro Schwartz was going to be the new manager. He had previously managed Hertha BSC, Dynamo Moscow, Mainz 05. And I was going to ask you, what changes and tactical strategies did he bring and implement after taking over in 2023 that really helped the Red Bulls in 2024?
Well, it wasn't just the tactics and the strategies. He also had better players, to be clear. And that makes a massive difference than the team that they walked off the field at the end of the 23 playoffs. Schwartz is a very technically astute coach. He understands, he's sophisticated in a way that, perhaps the previous coaches, really going back to Jesse Marsh, really hadn't gotten right. He built a flexibility among the team to be able to change tactics and change formations at different times during the match to kind of change the game state. And you saw when the team was healthy, I mean, they were in first place in the East 2 months into the season. They started 8-3-5 in 2024, and that precluded Forsberg getting hurt and missing most of the second half of the season. So, again, flexibility, certainly belief. He's a very light, uh, a very friendly, light-tempered guy. Now, that said, we don't see him in the locker room when things aren't going well, but he's, as German, he's very matter-of-fact about when things went wrong. When the Red Bulls went to Columbus in the second game of the season, it was early in the season. Hold on, let me just check. It was... No, they had started with 2 wins and a draw. They went to Columbus the fourth game of the season, and they got trucked 3-0. And Schwartz was very quick to say, yeah, no, I got it wrong. I got the tactics wrong. I'm responsible for this loss, not necessarily the players. And they were completely played off the pitch that night, losing the defending champs. And so he is really a breath of fresh air. Troy Lesane was terrific as the fill-in after Gerhard Struber got let go in 2023, and I wish Troy all the best of luck at DC United, because he's a great young American coach, and we need more great young American coaches in the league. But Schwartz, you really saw the tactical focus in a different way, and this is a team that can press the entire field, as more traditional Red Bulls press has been since 2015, but not only that, and more comfortable with the ball at their feet. And it's been, at least during this brief playoff season, a huge boon.
No, you can hear me, right?
Now I can.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Emil Forsberg, because out here, like, the one thing that we heard was that odd story about Forsberg and his family. How much of a distraction was that at the beginning of the season?
Well, the story didn't come out till the season had really started. And, we all kind of made the decision that this was it's an unfortunate story. I'll be honest, it doesn't paint Forsberg in a fantastic light. Um, uh, uh, but he did not appear to make it an issue on the field, and his early success, I think, with New York in the first phase of the season would certainly indicate that, at least it didn't appear that it was making an impact on his play. Um, he has been called into Sweden numerous times during the year, despite the fact that he's 34 years old. I think the call ups perhaps allow him to come back and see his kids with some regularity, but we really have not. We've kind of addressed it on our show, but at the end of the day, he's here to do a job, and just anybody in any role anywhere that's having some unfortunate family situations, it's real life. And, I we only see the public face of the social media that his ex-wife has put on social media, and it's just an unfortunate situation. It's not pretty, but it hasn't seemed to upset his play at all.
Tommy, I follow Scarps and Spikes, Tommy, and it seemed like there was a sense of impending doom the entire season. Like if a guillotine was hanging over everything. I heard you guys talking about decreased attendance, lowered expectations. Um, what happened with Atlanta United? Because after the League's Cup, the team only lost 3 times. They won their last 2 matches with big wins over New York Red Bulls and Orlando City. And then on that decision day, Atlanta United traveled to Orlando, shocked the Lions in their own den to secure the playoff spot. And then you guys went on that wild card match to face an old buddy of yours, and Joseph Martinez with FC Montreal. There was that intense battle. Martinez scored twice. There was the chatter between Martinez and Guzan. But Atlanta triumphed as visitors once again. And that's the first time I heard about the FEA. And I was like, what is that? And then I heard you guys talking about it. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. It's becoming a thing. And with like all viral things coming out of MLS, it's a lot of fun. um, and then you guys went against Miami, MLS's darling, and did the unthinkable by knocking them out of the playoffs. What happened? How did this team change? How did you guys go from like, oh, it's the end of the world to like, hello?
I still don't know the answer to that. I'm still trying to figure it out because you like you said earlier, like you go into the season, right, and you keep Gonzalo Pineda because he lost in 3 to Columbus. He had a year left on his contract. It didn't make sense to get rid of him. They started off hot to begin the season. They beat Orlando in the first few weeks, and then things just go wrong. There's injuries. Players are getting upset. There's talks of contract extensions or contract renegotiations with Yakimakis. And as this team struggles, all of a sudden they decide, all right, we're just gonna dump it all. We're gonna get rid of Gonzalo Pineda. That he moves on. Then you move on from Yakimakis. You move on from Almada. You move on from Caleb Wiley, and then Carlos Bocanegra, the technical director, leaves as well. And you're like, okay, like this is a full rebuild here, right? You bring Rob Valentino in for the second time as the interim coach. And you're just saying, all right, let's see what happens. And he comes in and they have a couple good results to start. They go into Leagues Cup, completely embarrassing what happened with Leagues Cup. They got to the semis in the U.S. Open Cup. I don't even want to talk about those games. Those upset me. They were probably some of the worst matches I think I've ever watched from Atlanta United, all of them. And they weren't even playing MLS teams. But then you come out of the break, and honestly, it was miserable. They lost to Nashville, which was the worst team in the league at the time, or the worst team in the East. And you're like, okay, this is just it. Like isn't going to work out well for this team. Let's just call it a day. You get a result towards the end of the season, and then you go into decision day with Orlando, and you need like 2 out of 3 things to happen, and you need a win. You're up 2-0 against Orlando, then it's 2-1, and then with maybe 2 minutes left in the game, it's 2-2. However, they go back and they take the goal away. And if they didn't take that goal away, who knows? Miami would still be around here. So that ref, thank you. You helped everything move on here. But then, you go there. Now you got to travel all the way up to Montreal, which is obviously a huge on short time, right? Because it was Saturday to Tuesday, I think it was. So you got to fly all the way up there. You get a huge result in penalties. Joseph Martinez ends up scoring in that one, of course, because that's what he does against Atlanta. Then you got to fly back down on short from Tuesday to Friday. Now, they could have played this game any other time. I don't like complaining about schedules, but I'm going to. You had the entire week, right? I think the matches went from Friday to Tuesday, those first games. But they made Atlanta have to play it because they were on TikTok. Messi was on TikTok. If you watched Messi on TikTok, I feel bad for you. Get out a little bit more because that's just a lot. And then, and they played him at the Apple Store. They played him at Times Square. So they end up winning that game. But the funny thing about game one is that we fully expected on that short rest for Miami to completely dominate Atlanta. Now they got up 1-0 in the first few minutes of the game, and then Atlanta ties it, and they almost have an opportunity to um to go ahead in stoppage time in the first half, and they don't, and it ends up costing them. They go home, they end up upsetting them at home, and then you go into game 3 and you're like, anything could happen. And just like what Mark was talking about, nobody was picking Atlanta. Like nobody was saying,
No.
all right, it's game 3. It's in Miami. That's it. It's over. Let's just have some fun. And then you go down 1-0 again, same exact story. And then back-to-back goals in like 2.5 minutes. And now you're going, oh man, what's going on? They tie the game, and then there was some shenanigans. Someone was down in the box, and Atlanta just kept playing. And Miami, instead of playing, they were pointing at everyone. It was like the Spider-Man meme where they're all just pointing at the ref, right? Just trying to get that ref to blow the whistle. And the goal goes in, and you could tell like there was a silence in the stadium because nobody knew if it was actually going to count. Because who knows, right? And there's a joke around, saying that MLS, Tim Cook, and Don Garber have a magic phone that's going to dial down and say you can't
Yeah.
allow that goal, right? There's absolutely no opportunity for it, and then they count it, and then it's like, okay, now the clock's ticking, right? I compared it to the end of the story of Miracle, right? Miracle on Ice, like blow the whistle, get to 0. And it was just it felt like time was just going so slow. And then they blew the whistle. And by the way, Suarez, I know you're watching this. I know you don't have anything else to do on a Sunday night. I hate you. Thank you.
Oh my god! I remember like and the week leading up to that, we had a meme out here where it shows the Council of the Nine before they head off to to Mordor, and it had Atlanta United as Frodo, and Gandalf as the LA Galaxy, and you know, and then the other characters surrounding them, right, from different MLS teams, and they're all like, "You carry the hope of all of us, little one," and because it seemed like such an insurmountable thing, but here in the United States, I mean, we love a good underdog story, and MLS is one of the wonderful things about this league is that nothing is nothing is 100% guaranteed. You have to win it. Like nothing is won on paper, even with the Don's backing, right? Um, I posted that little meme of J. Jonah Jameson, on his phone, screaming, smoking a cigar, saying, "This is Don Garber on the phone right now," calling Miami in the final minutes of that match, like, "Do something, damn it!" But no, Atlanta won. And
I think there's a delicious irony here in that, right? It was Tim Cook and Apple TV Plus that was so insistent on creating more playoff content by
oh yeah.
expanding the first round to a best of 3 series. And if the series was a single game, then Atlanta would not still be playing. So, more messy, more messy, more messy until no more messy.
So real quick, Mark, let's switch over to New York. Just real quick, a lot of Galaxy fans, obviously, we don't follow the East as much, but just to get everybody caught up. Um, After Miami and Columbus, it was the Red Bulls that had the least amount of losses in the Eastern Conference of only 9. In
Yep.
fact, New York didn't lose their fourth match until early June and didn't lose another MLS match until late August. However, the Red Bulls kind of fell apart at the end. They lost 4 of the last 6 matches,
Yeah.
including the last 2 against a resurgent Atlanta United and Columbus Crew. Um, like you said, Mark, was there any wonder anybody didn't say, "Hey, the Red Bulls are going to beat Columbus in the first round"? Um, I remember I was in a roundtable and the question was asked, "Hey, what are you guys' prediction?" And everybody was like, "Yeah, Columbus in 2, Columbus in 2."
Yeah.
It was like, man, the Red Bulls are an afterthought. But you kind of mentioned a little bit of this. What changed between those 10 days between the end of the regular season and that first round matchup against Columbus? Can you
Yeah.
elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it a little bit. The fact that the teams played on decision day and the fact that New York was able to work themselves back into that game, I think gave a ton of confidence to Schwartz from a tactical standpoint and also to the players. Forsberg was working his way back to fitness, and his drive, his leadership on the field, and his ability, frankly, to be able to distribute the ball and put the ball in great situations is absolutely. I mean, he's by far the most experienced and the most talented player on the team. And he was working himself back to fitness. He didn't actually return to the lineup until I believe that Toronto game. It was which was the one win they had down that last stretch. They went 1-4-1 right in their last 6 games. And so I think the wrinkle that Schwartz put together again is going with 3 center backs and pushing up the two wing backs and pulling a center back into the pressing scheme in the attacking half. There were times during the Red Bulls game 2 victory in the penalty kick shootout against Columbus where Andres Reyes, of all people, were in the attacking half helping to shut the passing lanes down. And you can say that you are desperate, when you're pushed up that far, as it's been since this team has been a high press team, it's long diagonal balls over the top are the way to beat them. And they were able to effectively disrupt Columbus's passing game in a way that just made them uncomfortable over 180 minutes. They never really got in their rhythm, and New York was willing to concede huge periods of possession, staying compact, hitting on the counter, and working for each other. And that kind of system just proved to be incredibly effective against Columbus because they didn't really have another gear. They didn't have a counterpunch. And when New York collapsed into a shell and conceded possession up until 25 yards out from goal and dared them to break them down through death by 1,000 passes, Columbus wasn't able to get it done. So a huge feather in the cap of not only Schwartz, but the players, and they did a phenomenal job. And, now they go into this weekend, you can say both Tommy's Atlanta side and the Red Bulls have quote unquote nothing to lose, but these are, I believe, winnable games for both teams. And if the result is the Red Bulls and Atlanta advancing, then the 7th seed New York Red Bulls will host the Eastern Conference Final against Atlanta in the next round, and that would be absolutely bonkers.
And that's very, very possible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, Tommy, real quick, since Atlanta joined MLS, they've had 5 different head coaches. Tata Martino remains the only coach to bring the club a trophy. During the 2021 season, what was that?
No, that's not true.
Okay. I was going to say during the 2021 season, Gabriel Heinze was fired, but later fired. And then Rob Valentino stepped in as interim coach. And in 2024, following the dismissal of Gonzalo Pineda, like we said, Valentino once again took over in an interim capacity. Despite losing
Frank DeBoer,
Almada,
though, man. You can't
What's
forget
that?
Frank DeBoer.
Oh yeah, Frank DeBoer. Oh my goodness,
2 trophies.
I still remember you guys talking about Frank DeBoer. My God,
People wanted him back, but he's a forgotten man. It was
No.
only 1 year that he was here, or a year. No, I take that back. A year and a COVID couple games from there. But he was really getting that team to play defense there. And if it wasn't for Joseph Martinez getting hurt in the right before the conference finals against Toronto, there's a very good chance Atlanta could have won back-to-back MLS Cups. He won the U.S. Open Cup that year, and he won the Campeones Cup. If you count that as a trophy, I don't know. I've heard from certain people that it's not a trophy, but whatever. It's a 1-game fun off there. But yeah, we've been through a lot here.
Yeah. So how much credit does Rob Valentino deserve though this time around? Because I've heard you guys saying, hey, should the interim tag finally be removed? And can you explain to a lot of people that don't know and only the way you can, Tommy, what the whole FEA thing is?
Well, if this is PG, then
It's
or
not
even
PG.
PG-13. Okay, well, it's fuck them all, and I think it's just that they're nobody expected them to do anything right here, and they just keep doing things right, and they have the poster like you could see like after they beat Miami, they had the poster like ready to go, which I thought was pretty cool. Like when they walked in, Arthur Blank, the owner, saw the poster. Like they're taking pictures with it. They're selling T-shirts with it, and it's just an underdog type thing here. But that's been a talk for a long time. Is what do you do with Rob Valentino? Because he's been in an interesting situation because he got this team with essentially one DP. Now, at one point, like, and they have two DPs in the spots right now, but really only one player's salary is a DP type player, and that's Miran Chuck. And they got him, right when Leagues Cup was starting. So really, for quite a amount of time, they didn't have any DPs there, and he was still able to get some results. Now the question then becomes, what can if you had a deep, you had three DPs, what could you do with this team? And that's a very good question. What could you do with this team if he has it? And we've gone back and forth. We do Twitter Spaces after every game, and people hop on. And we got one guy that always calls in and says like Rob 2045, like saying that he's going to be here forever. And it was like, there's no way he's going to stay here, right? Because they weren't doing very well. They weren't going to make the playoffs, and then just things keep happening. Wins keep happening, and he's gotten a lot of hits throughout the playoffs too. There's been a lot of injuries on this team. Brooks Lennon is out for the year, which obviously is a huge one for Atlanta. But you have Gregerson, our best center back, was hurt in game one. Was unable to play game two. Was able to come in as a sub, I think, in game three. But he's been able to do it, and there's a lot of questions because there was obviously talks of Patrick Vieira coming in. There were rumors that they've interviewed him, and he's a finalist. So what does a finalist mean? And that's what I've been wondering. Like, are there other finalists? Is Rob a finalist? I mean, obviously they said that they were going to interview Rob, and like Rob's resume is all these cool Atlanta United videos that they keep posting after each game. It's like after the whistle, and they show you behind the scenes of everything, and they're really great videos. And if I'm Rob, I'm not even printing my resume off on Word. I'm just handing them like a CD-ROM with all these videos. I said CD-ROM, yes, I said it, and you just hand it to them and say, "Here, this is what I did, right? I got us here. I got us a 70,000, almost 70,000 people in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in October to watch us beat Lionel Messi and its team." And it's crazy because I think a lot of fans are still saying, long term, you'd rather have a manager with more experience. And obviously Vieira would be one of those managers, right? I mean, who else? I mean, Jim Curtin has obviously been a topic. Atlanta asked to interview him prior to him getting terminated. He said no. So now he gets terminated. So now does he come back and say, I want to interview? I don't know how that works here. So if I'm Garth Lagerwey, I have a real hard decision here to make. And either way, the fan base is not going to be happy, right? If you say no to Rob, he probably gets an
So true.
opportunity somewhere else. Now, it may not be in MLS to start. Maybe. I don't know. But I mean, it's hard. Like, can he just go back to being the assistant manager after doing this? Like, I just feel like that's a very hard thing to do as a guy that has obviously taken you all the way here. Now you're in the back seat again. I don't know. It's the off season, and I was fully planning on being in off season mode, right? Like I was going to put the jerseys away for the year, not talk about soccer, just sit in the corner and just whine about how it is. Chris Henderson was going to be coming in as the new technical director. We were already planning on that, which is still a rumor that's going to happen. Who's going to be the manager? But no, we're still talking. I'm here on November 17th, and we're still talking about an Atlanta United game against Orlando. It's crazy. So to answer your question, I have no freaking idea what's going to happen. Whether they win against Orlando on Sunday or they lose, it's going to be a very hard decision to make.
Can I just say that if Rob Valentino hands someone a CD-ROM, I don't know that they're going to be able to play it. So if I was Rob, I would direct them maybe to YouTube. Just saying.
Maybe you could print it out on a dot matrix printer, and hand it over.
Maybe Blu-ray. I mean, get a little up to date.
There you go.
So
You don't want to
guys,
age him too much. Like if he gives a VHS, then they're just gonna be
Right.
like, "Yeah,
Then
you're
it's
out.
like,
You're too
no.
old for this job."
beta. So guys, I was gonna say, we're gonna talk about odds right here in a little bit, but both of you, all right, we're talking about how the pundits treated the series for both your clubs, and I was thinking to myself, like, gee, what do you have a better chance of finding? Somebody that chose, Atlanta or Columbus, I mean, or Atlanta or Red Bulls to defeat, their opponents in this first round, or finding somebody when Miami comes to town, finding somebody in the crowd that is not wearing a Messi jersey, but rather another player on the team, right? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I
we
remember,
both talked about it. There was no one picking either of our teams, like not a one.
yeah. So let's bring up those odds. Brian, I don't know if you have them ready. I just want to bring them up because I want to look at the odds before and after, and get you guys' thoughts on that. Bryant, can you bring those up, please? Here we go. Sorry, Mark. Sorry, Tommy. But
Let's get rid
real
of him. This
quick.
doesn't look good to me. Let's just get rid of this graphic right now.
Someone
So
make a big bet there on the bottom. I hope someone did that.
So before before the playoffs started in earnest, we have Atlanta down there at what, plus 20,000 of making MLS Cup or winning MLS Cup, right? Of course, you have Miami way there at the very top. They get Don Garber's blessing and all that good stuff. And then in third, you had Columbus right behind LA Galaxy with a plus 625, and Red Bull, what, four from the bottom at a plus 6,600. I mean, right? And oh, by the way, pay attention to LA Galaxy, right? Because you're going to see something interesting. And Brian, can you bring up the latest ones, please? And as the latest ones, real
Oh,
quick
that's
for Galaxy
fun.
fans, LAFC leapfrogged the LA Galaxy, even though LAFC had a more difficult time defeating Vancouver in their series. But you look at the other teams that you got New York at plus 800. Wow, that's a huge jump. But Atlanta is still at the bottom there. What do you guys have to say about that? Okay, Mark, let's go with you first.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's important to note that Las Vegas odds makers generally know nothing about this league. They are simply looking at right, the standings from last year when they make their annual predictions. They're detached. I also, I mean, I think that is really strange that LAFC jumped you guys. The only thing that I can imagine is that someone perhaps wasn't aware that they were two LA teams and thought they were putting the other one as a favorite, and then they took a cursory second look and said, maybe this is the case. But yeah, I mean, I think I certainly can't speak to Atlanta continuing to be last. I think 5th out of 8 for the Red Bulls is probably about right. Again, the idea that they could have another home game, I think, should change the equation. So yeah, I'm comfortable with 5th out of 8, but anything can happen, and it probably will, right, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, they have one legit DP on their team, right? And when you see a lot of these teams, they're stacked, right? You're stacked with U22s, you're stacked with DP players, and Atlanta's not that, right? They're not very deep at all, but they've obviously pulled up one of the biggest upsets here. But still, I mean, winning on MLS, I mean, historically winning on the road has been very difficult for all teams, right? And Atlanta now has to go and win 3 on the road. And those games consist of going to Orlando, which they've gotten results before, Red Bull Arena, and uh, whatever baseball field you want to pick. I mean, those are obviously very difficult. I don't know if Atlanta has won. No, they did. They won in the playoffs. They won against New York FC in the playoffs at Yankee Stadium the year that they won. And then, possibly have to fly across the country.
Yeah.
To LA, or maybe go to Minnesota. But I mean, it's it's Seattle, right? Seattle, yeah.
So
It's the
you
other one.
guys, you're Don Garber, and you're waking up the morning of December 7th, and you look at your schedule, and you have Minnesota versus Atlanta in MLS Cup final. What's going through your mind?
It's gotta hurt, right? Like, it's painful because you want ratings, and, like, I don't even know if they really want ratings or not because it's I mean, I guess it is on it will be on probably Fox, I assume, or ABC. I don't remember
No,
which
I don't. I'm not sure if it is. I don't think
it
you.
is. I think it
It's
would
going to be
be.
on free TV, like on FS1 or something.
I don't think it'd be it's been every year it's been on either ABC or,
A
um,
major network, right?
ABC or Fox. So, yeah, I think that they definitely get on there for sure. But yeah, I mean, like ratings wise, that's just not a good thing for them. Like you look at some of the leagues and their finals. Like an example I have here, just I'll bring it up for Edgar, was the Anaheim Ducks and the Ottawa Senators,
Oh
and
yeah.
it was the Stanley Cup final in 2007. It was one of the worst rated finals of all time. It was real bad, and that's what they wanted to avoid. And you go into this year thinking, oh man, I am going to get Columbus and Miami in the conference finals. This is going to be gold. I'm going to get LA and LA in the other conference finals, and then I'm going to get in LA versus either the defending champions or against Lionel Messi, and you've ruined half that equation, and that's thanks to us. So
Yeah.
cheers to us on that because I think that's fantastic on what we did. But
No,
man, if you could,
hang your hat on that,
yeah.
and
But
embrace
close your
it,
ears,
right?
Edgar, because I'm about to say something you're not going to like.
Uh-oh, go
If
for it.
Seattle and Minnesota win, oh man.
Oh
Now
man.
I don't think that happens, but oh man, and like I'll just say here, LAFC, I expected them to destroy Vancouver, destroy them. I did not think that they were going to struggle because I don't want to say struggle, but like they just did not look like the LAFC that is supposed to put fear in to MLS. They struggled, and it just I don't know. I wasn't very impressed with them in round one at all.
Let's talk real quick about LAFC, just because a lot of people, you guys in the East, you're probably not paying too much attention to them. Although Don Garber would throw them in your face as much as possible, just like Miami. But there was before Olivier Giroud came on board, there was a lot of talk of like, dear God, these guys are already stacked. Now they're gonna get Giroud, and he's gonna just devour MLS defenders. And yeah, he showed up, and Kai Kamara was in the middle of having a fantastic season, right, despite his age. And my one of my questions was, how's he gonna, where's he gonna fit? How's he gonna fit into the equation? And our good buddy Matt Pollard, who covers the Rapids, also brought that up in one of our conversations, was because we asked him to compare LA Galaxy getting Marco Royce versus LAFC getting Olivier Giroud, and he said, Marco Royce is kind of a guy you could plug him in into many different spots in the midfield, whereas Olivier Giroud, you already have strikers, you already have like a Kamara, and it's just going to cause some kind of confusion and turmoil, and he has struggled to get any service. From what I hear, I've been talking to some LAFC pods and asking what's going on, and they're like, he doesn't get the service that he wants, and he's struggling. Yeah, he has a lot of great talent. He can score on a dime or real fast when you need him, but you got to get him the ball. You got to feed the guy, and right now he's not getting fed. Now Vancouver, on the other hand, they've been dealing with injuries. They've been dealing with players coming in and out because of international duty throughout the entire season. They're a team that they're a club that even the Vancouver podcasters will tell you the same thing. They're a team that always seems to be on the verge of doing something momentous, of turning the corner and becoming like a force. And something always happens and they just don't. They fall short. And it happened again this time, unfortunately. But right before the playoffs started, they got everybody back. Everybody returned from international duty. Everybody was healthy. The teams to be really clicking. And, we got some fantastic quotes from Vinny Sartini there. And they went in there and they gave LAFC a run for the money, and at the end, they just ran out of gas. LAFC playing at BMO Field is really difficult. LAFC likes to bully teams, and when they come in there, and for a long time, Vancouver was doing a good job of just hanging in there. They had some great chances, and they just couldn't get it done. Like you guys said, they took them to the edge, and so it's fascinating to see them leapfrog LA Galaxy, but now they go up against Seattle. Recently, LAFC has dominated Seattle, but Seattle is Seattle, and Brian Schmetzer, you never know. You never know what to expect from him. So I would not be surprised if this Seattle team ends up defeating LAFC. As far as Minnesota is concerned, we're going to be talking to the guys from the Lunacy podcast later this week, so we can get a word from them. But I was talking to them behind the scenes, and I asked them what's going on over there before the playoffs started. I was like, "Do you guys feel that you guys are a dark horse?" And they're like, "We're gonna surprise some teams. We're not gonna just go away quietly." Now, a lot of people don't know this. We mentioned this before in our pod that RSL has only ever beaten Minnesota 3 times ever, and so was it a big shock for us when they beat RSL? No, not really. But at the same time, I told people, especially in our Galaxy circle here, I tell them, do not sleep on the Loons. Do not take this team lightly because they could shock you. Like you guys said, next thing you know, we have Seattle versus Minnesota in the Western Conference Final. Um, but shifting it back to you guys, um, start with Mark real quick. What are your expectations for this edition of the Hudson River Derby? Because you guys haven't played each other in the playoffs, right?
No, this will be the first time. And I do want to go back to something you said about Vancouver always getting close and never being able to get over the line. I don't know what that could possibly be like. I just can't figure that out, what that
Yeah,
sensation must
I'm
be.
sorry. I mean, I
It's
I know
all
you
good,
can't
my
relate,
man.
right?
It's all good, my man. Against LAFC, like you're there, Vancouver was terrific most of the year. And one thing that teams need to develop is learning how to win in the playoffs, right? And we've seen LAFC nearly from the jump, right? I think they missed in their first year; they didn't make the playoffs, but they have so many do or die games under their belt over the last 5 years, so many, and with that many experienced players, it didn't surprise me too much that they weren't able to that Vancouver wasn't able to take them down in a deciding game. I just think that you know until you get there, like if Vancouver made the playoffs 3, 4, 5 years in a row, I think you build that DNA as a team and how to win in the postseason. But they're just at the start of their journey. In terms of the game on Saturday, yeah, the Red Bulls lost to City twice this season. Early in the season in Queens, actually at City Field, and as a Met fan, it's really really strange to go to City Field and root for the visiting team. It's really a strange sensation, and I mean they shouldn't be playing in that stadium anyway. But New York was not the better team that night. City had that little extra oomph, and they scored. I think in the first or second minute, New York came back on a great Cam Harper goal, thunderous goal from right at the edge of the box, and then New York, the Red Bulls, kind of went asleep in the second half on one sequence, and that was it. And they lost 2-1. And in that game, that was kind of the start of Emil Forsberg's injury challenges. He only played the last 20 minutes, and he was not terribly effective. The game on September 28th, which was at Red Bull Arena and a lot of hype, New York was really kind of in a bad way. They hadn't won since before Leagues Cup, and City decided to throw the kitchen sink at Red Bulls in terms of a high press. Carlos Cornell with a bad back pass. Danny Edelman with a dreadful bag pass led to goals. I think the Red Bulls were down 2-0 inside of 10 minutes, and the Red Bulls were really unable to match City's intensity and physicality. Forsberg was injured for the game, and New York really, we called it on our show, the worst home loss in Red Bull Arena history. I mean, I believe they had lost by 4 goals there once before. But remember, the Red Bulls have the best home record of any team in MLS since Red Bull Arena opened in 2010. No one has more points at home than the New York Red Bulls. And for them to get crushed like that by their chief rival and then to turn around and do what they did against Columbus just 4 weeks later is really nothing said short of miraculous. I mean, the confidence was at an all was it's so bad. But I think the mark of a good coach is saying, look, game's over, can't do anything about it. All we can do is be more intense, be more physical, and pick it up the next time. And that's what they did. And so I don't think they will go into Saturday afternoon's match being unprepared. I think they understand the stakes, and I think they're going to have a ton of confidence, as City should as well, right? I mean, Cincinnati maybe was not their best squad, and going to TQL and beating Cincinnati 1-0 in the third game of that series, I think is going to give City a ton of confidence, and they've been playing better down the stretch. So, yeah, I wish I could tell you I knew what was going to happen. I think both teams are really going to go for it. It wouldn't surprise me if you saw one or multiple red cards in this match due to just the intensity. The game has sold very well. I think City Field is being capped at 22.5 in terms of capacity for the game. They're not opening the upper 2 decks of City Field. I've seen the get-in price for this game is over $100 right now. And, for you guys in markets that actually support your MLS teams, it's unheard of because neither of these teams get any press at all. Like none from the mainstream press. So this is organic interest in this match, and it should be really exciting.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about what kind of buzz there was in their whole region because you guys just had the World Series, and I know the World Series is always like there's so much buzz around that, and then you have this match between the two biggest rivals in that New York metropolitan area. And I was just going to ask you, what's the vibe going to be like at the stadium, and do you have an idea of what the makeup is going to be between Red Bulls and City fans there at the stadium? Like, is it going to be like a good showing for Red Bull fans?
Yeah, no, I think it'll be a good showing for Red Bull fans. I mean, I'm thinking you're probably going to see, I don't know, 30% Rebel fans, maybe 35% Rebel fans. A lot of Rebel fans had written the team off going into the playoffs. So I think, this is the shortest home road trip you can have, short of you guys out in LA, right? I think the question is going to be, is the media going to jump in? Look, the Giants are terrible. The Jets are terrible. The game is on Saturday. Hockey's just starting. Basketball's just starting. So I think that there's an opportunity for this match to be kind of the game of the day in New York sports. But the reason why we do our podcast principally is to give fans something to chew on in between the games because they're not getting it anywhere else other than Reddit or or some old bulletin board site like Metro Fanatic. So we try to create a lot of content around the team, to serve the fan base, and they're chronically underserved here. And I don't know how it is. I mean, Atlanta, I can certainly understand. Hockey's not there, and they get a huge crowds. I'm really happy for you guys down there. And in LA, I think it's somewhat similar, right? I mean, these teams are the 11th and 12th pro team in the market. We have 2 football, 2 baseball, 2 basketball, and 3 hockey teams. And women's sports, we've got the WNBA champions. Gotham was the defending champion. They just went out yesterday. And so there's just, the mainstream sports media is smaller now than it's ever been, and that'll just continue. And so it's up to folks like us to carry the torch, I guess. But, the followers of both of these teams are very excited, very excited.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I was actually
Sorry,
gonna
Edgar.
mention real quick. Go ahead, Tommy.
I was shaking my head nonstop because it's just ridiculous because you have 2 New York teams, right? And
Yeah.
it's we talk about this all the time. When Messi leaves, what do you leave this league with? Right. And you might go get a couple other stars here. But look, I don't like New York teams at all. The only one I root for is Sabrina
from the
from
Liberty.
the WNBA because I'm
Yeah.
an Oregon fan. But other than that, I don't like any New York team. But you know what? Those New York rivalries are always fun, right? Mets, Yankees, Rangers, Islanders.
Yeah,
I love all the sports there, right?
we love
Giants and
beating New
Jets,
York in the
maybe not that
playoffs.
one because they're terrible. Both teams are terrible. But what
Terrible.
I'm saying is that whether it's LA, which obviously gets a ton of attention, right? But New York, obviously should be. And you said this is the first time they've met in the playoffs.
Yeah.
How do you not open up more just to even see if that you could fill it up? It seems ridiculous to me that they don't
Yeah.
even attempt it or even try to give away some tickets because Arthur Blank actually did that. He gifted a bunch of seats to some of the early supporters or the early season ticket holders. There was a loss in the family of Atlanta United of the fan base, and he gave some tickets away for people to go there. But like, this is a big opportunity for both New York teams to get out there. And I know how New York fans are. They're rowdy. Go get a bunch, go get, I mean, you said 20,000. If they increased and they open it up to everything or whatever the max capacity is, how much is that, do you think?
It's probably 42. There's a previously scheduled event that's happening in the parking lot of the stadium, and I think they're concerned. Well, I mean,
What's going on in the parking lot?
I think there's
Oh
either a
no.
circus or a fair or something that's been on the calendar for months, and so I think principally it's due to parking concerns. Um, Listen, when you're owned by absentee owners that live 3 continents away, this is what happens. I mean, there was talk at one point about the game being at Red Bull Arena and City fans getting first dibs on the tickets
Yeah.
because it's basically a City home game. But listen, I got to hop, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Nice meeting you, Tommy. Nice meeting you, Edgar. Thank you for having me. I'm going to step out.
Mark, real quick, where can the people follow you in case they want to keep up with Red Bulls and Seeing Red podcast?
Yeah, sure. We're available on every major platform. I've really kind of shifted my presence to Blue Sky, where you can find me at mark.fishkin. The show is Seeing Red NY on all of those platforms. It's seeingredpod.com. But thanks again for having me. I've really enjoyed the hour, guys.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us, man. Take care of yourself.
Be well.
Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
And now we're left with Tommy.
Yeah.
Tommy, you
Can
got
I
to
just
carry
say
the
something
show,
about Blue
Tommy.
Sky real quick?
Go for it. Hey, go for it, man. Yeah, you have the
So
platform.
I didn't know what Blue Sky was, and whenever you hear anything with the word blue at the beginning of a company, you always think it's like an enhancing drug for men, right?
Oh no,
And
not you too.
people kept saying join Blue Sky, and I was like, are you one of those people that are trying to get me to go to your website and get a free trial of something to enhance me after 11 o'clock at night? I don't need that. But now I found out what it was, and I'm on it. So
Hey, it works, right? It's fun.
yeah, I
It's fun.
guess. But back to him real quick. There's a circus in the middle of November in New York.
It's freaking cold, bro.
Right.
Those
Like,
poor animals.
do you have is it a situation where it's like in a tent and it's like heated? It better be because in New York, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's still okay here in Ohio, but it's like, low mid 40s somewhere around there, but that just seems silly. And like that obviously happens in other leagues, right? Like Atlanta United has had a bunch of their Open Cup games they've had to play at their local college stadium there because they have monster trucks, or Champions League because they have monster trucks in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Like I get some of that, but man, towards the end of the year, you gotta be able to do something, right?
Absolutely. So let's shift the attention to you guys. Now, okay, hear me out. Hear me out, Tommy, because I know I've been on your show and you guys have been on here, and I've been bringing it up about the whole Waffle House thing, right? And there's no official nickname, right, for Orlando or Atlanta, right? I'm just putting it out there, everyone. The Waffle House Tussle. It rolls off the tongue, and it's delicious at 2 in the morning when you're.
Waffle House War.
Nah, come on, man. That's too violent. We need something that's fun
They
and
hate each
enjoyable.
other.
The
They
Waffle House tussle.
eh, you know, I will.
Come on, Tommy, look at that.
Good sound effect there. Sydney said this on our show the other day about like if it was if Charlotte ended up winning, it was going to be a derby. But like, let's not forget the original hatred for Atlanta United was Orlando, right? Joseph Martinez going Orlando in the U.S. Open Cup semifinals. Like, there's been big moments between these teams. There's a hatred for there. Maybe it hasn't been as important because you've added Nashville, you've added Charlotte, right? So now you've got other teams in the East that you could hate for different reasons. But still, it goes back to me and says, Orlando is a hated team, right? And this is a rivalry, and it's pretty cool that you're getting New York, and you're getting Atlanta and their original rival in the conference finals here, and then it goes even deeper. If Atlanta wins, if they can pull it out, then they're going to be going to face these two New York teams, which for a long time, Atlanta United fans really thought that the Red Bulls were their legit rival there because you couldn't beat the Red Bulls. They hadn't beat them in the regular season at all for a very long time. And then they were finally able to get a result. And then they beat them in the playoffs en route to MLS Cup.
So, which team would you rather face, the Red Bulls or the Pigeons?
I would have to say it would be the Red Bulls because it like Mark said earlier, they have a distinct advantage, right? Playing on that tiny field. And to be honest with you, I feel drunk when I'm watching it on TV. Like, you're trying to figure out the camera angles when you watch any New York FC match,
Damn.
right? Like, you watch
Yeah.
it, and sometimes you're turning your head sideways. You're trying to figure out like where you're like, because I want to know where I'm at the baseball stadium, right? I want to know where first base is, all of this, and I get dizzy watching it. So, I mean, for that, obviously, I'd want the Red Bulls. But yeah, I mean, I think either way, it's going to be a difficult matchup for Atlanta. And look, I understand why nobody has them as the favorites to win here, but another win, a win against Orlando, and then people are going to start saying, "What's going on in Atlanta?"
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, you've had some matchups. I mean, even our match against the Galaxy, it wasn't like we expected a full blowout in that game. We expected to lose like 6-1. I don't remember what the final score up was of that match. Was it 2-1,
I think it was like 2-0,
2 or
something like that.
3-1?
Something like that. I
But
remember
it
Marichuk
wasn't
made
wasn't a
his
blowout.
debut. Yeah. Now, so tell us about some of the other little things that are going on because I know like Dax McCarthy had announced his retirement earlier in the season, right? He says, "Is it hanging up the boots?" He's a MLS player. He's one of that rare MLS player that, my God, you hate to face him, but damn, you love to have him on your squad. I know we've talked about it in the past here. I was like, damn, it would be great to have somebody like a Dax McCarthy, the guy that does all the dirty work, and it seemed like you said, it seemed like, yeah, we're getting ready for the end of the season. It's gonna be quick, and then no, you guys keep extending his career. What's going on with that with Dax McCarthy?
Yeah, Dax, it's funny you say that you hate him. I remember I was playing, I think, Call of Duty with Tyler one night, and I had quite a few drinks, and he mentioned to me that we got Dax, and I just wasn't paying attention. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I remember logging offline at like 1 a.m. I called him like, you didn't tell me we got Dax McCarty? And he's like, no, why? And I'm like, or he's like, I did, but you didn't say anything. And I'm like, oh, I hate that guy. I absolutely can't stand him because he was just always a thorn in our side when he was with Nashville, and Atlanta didn't have a good record against Nashville, especially early on. But he's a leader, obviously, and if there's a guy that they're playing for, it's definitely him, right? He hasn't had a chance to win MLS Cup. And, it's his last year. He's had some great performances, some real good ones. I mean, I didn't really expect him to play that much in the season, and he really didn't. He didn't play a ton, and now he's starting to be a consistent starter here in the playoffs, and that's what you need, right? When you go into the
I mean,
playoffs, and
he
not
had
enough
that
teams.
fantastic assist, right, for that first goal by Tiara.
I believe so, yeah, and like That's the thing, though, is like I think a lot of people, when you look at other sports, especially when you look at like the NHL, there's always the talks about getting veterans in, right, for playoff runs. Always having a good veteran is going to help there, and it's true, right? You have a guy that's been there before, and Dax has been there many, many times. So when you have a guy like Dax, you have a guy like Brad Guzan out there. That's leadership for a team that just their roster isn't as stacked as other ones, right? And I think when you've seen historically huge upsets on teams, there's usually some type of leader on the other side that is helping them get through this. And you've got two big ones. Like Brad Guzan's, ultimately the leader of this team. He has for a long time, and he's the reason why we moved on. Like he just stopped. He stopped. Messi many times, made a
That
couple
guy.
nice saves on Suarez. I mean, Messi, he finally got a goal in game 3, but Brad Guzan had like 3 stops on him in game 1. I mean, he was getting in his head here. So leadership here is obviously a very important for this very young team.
All right, Tommy, before we head out, let's say Atlanta does make it to MLS Cup final. Which of the 4 teams from the West would you rather Atlanta face?
I mean, not the LA teams, right? I mean, maybe LAFC because they could choke a lot in MLS Cup. I know they got one, but I don't think the Crew. I think the Crew have shown them, so we just got to talk to the Crew on how to beat them. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be the LA teams. It would probably be Minnesota. Like you'd want to go there, and I could probably drive there. It's a short distance for me, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind being able to go there. I don't know. I would say Minnesota for sure.
So, final question: if and when will the clock strike midnight on this Cinderella story? Do you think Atlanta can really go all the way?
I think with the results that you've had, absolutely. I could see a route to MLS Cup. Now, after MLS Cup, who knows what happens here, right? I think all 4 of these teams legit have, an equal opportunity to win here. I don't think there's any roster out of these 4 that you could say, oh, at least in the East, right? Say, oh, they're much better than the other one. I think Atlanta's probably, just like the odd show, probably the least likely to do it. But I think with good coaching, I think that they would be able to do it, and they've obviously been able to. This 2-week rest, while I understand your boy was not happy with the 2-week break, or technically 3-week break for you.
Yep.
For
One of
Atlanta,
us
I
was.
think it's key for this team because I mentioned earlier you had injuries. Johnny Fortune got hurt during that series. He's got 2 weeks to recover. Gregerson, Tiare, who had the 2 goals against Miami, he got hurt at the end of that game. We posted a video out a couple days ago of me talking about it. Pashande Silva, last season with Atlanta, he was a very special transfer in. He was one of the hottest wingers in MLS towards the end of the year. And, he was either on or off, but he was still scoring a lot of goals. This season, he's been nursing a foot injury, not been able to play much. And when he just did not look like himself, causing a little bit of chaos because that's what he does. But he hasn't been able to really do it. Well, he came in and he scored the game winner in game 2, right? Took his shirt off. Everyone saw that. I mean, iconic pose there for winning a big game. But you give this guy 2 more weeks to continue getting that foot back to normal on a team that only has 1 legit DP on their roster. I am telling you that he will be the X factor for Atlanta United to win MLS Cup. If he could get healthy here and he could play more than 20, 30 minutes in a game, whether he's a starter or you just bring him out in the second half, he will be the reason why Atlanta United win MLS Cup.
Well, tell you what. Oh, look at that. Oh, come on, Eddie. Eddie, thank you so much for the $2 super chat that goes back into your pocket.
Super chat. Sorry.
Tommy, can you care to read that one actually?
$2 towards a joke book for Edgar. You know what? We'll do like how they do on like shows and be like, I'll double I'll double that. I'll double the donation here to get you the joke book. All right, I'm helping out here.
Thank you, Scars and Spikes. Before we get going, just I want to bring it up because we've talked about it before. The Hot Ones Challenge. If
Yeah.
LA Galaxy is an MLS Cup versus Atlanta United, will Scarves and Spikes join News Across the Galaxy for a Hot Ones Challenge?
So I've done one before. I'll tell you this. I did it,
Mhm.
and I got all the way to the Dabam. I think it's Dabam is the second last one. I did that, and I thought I was having a heart attack. Okay, my chest was tightening up, and like everybody brought their own things to drink. Like people bring milk. Someone brought ice cream. I had to bomb, and I couldn't find a spoon quick enough to get the ice cream. I clawed it out with my hands like a caveman and just started like stuffing ice cream down my throat. It did not help. I called my wife and I said, I think I'm dying. I might not see you again. Came home later that night and she slept on the couch. She left because everything, all that was coming out of me. All of it was. It was just the whole house smelled like a barnyard. So I will do it, but I got to get a permission slip from her, or I got to sleep on the couch.
Oh, that's amazing because something similar happened in my house. We did a Hot Ones challenge last year, and man, we got to the end, and we did okay. But it's a lot of people don't tell you it's the aftermath that really messes with you. And oh my god, that stuff
Terrible.
goes out. It goes out with revenge, right? With vengeance.
Oh yeah, I would not. If you don't have a strong stomach, and I don't have a gallbladder, so it was very rough. Don't do that. Bad.
Woo. All right, well, Tommy, hey man, thank you so much for joining us. We love Scarves and Spikes, and we love having you and Sydney and Tyler come on anytime. We can have you guys on here. It's always a treat. So, anybody who isn't aware about Scarves and Spikes or isn't aware about you or the pod, can you tell us where they can find you, where they can follow you for all Atlanta United stuff?
Yeah, scarvesandspikes.com. We also YouTube show that we do Mondays. We talk about MLS. Wednesdays we talk just straight Atlanta United. And then after every game, we do Twitter Spaces, which is where we started and what we love to do. So if your team is playing Atlanta United, please join us and talk about the game. Whether win or lose. We had some Orlando fans in there last time we played Orlando. That came in. It's always fun to have people in there. So it's it's we were expected to be in off-season mode. Now we're still in season mode. I don't have my vacation pants on yet, and I'm not ready to put them on.
And we're on Blue Sky now, right?
Yep. Just for $2 here, you can get 2 Blue Sky pills that will get you and make everyone satisfied.
Yeah, as you heard, Mark Fishkin, our friend who just joined us from Steam Red Podcast, he is on Blue Sky. Tommy is on Blue Sky. I signed up this week as well. I really like it. I really like the platform there, and you're probably going to be seeing a lot more content from me and probably from Tommy and Scarves and Spikes as well, and News Across the Galaxy from here on out on Blue Sky. Adam, as Super Chat asks, Edgar, is there a midweek show? Yes. What was that?
Super chat.
There we go.
Every time I hear super chats, I got to do it.
Yes. Hey, Edgar, is there a midweek show? Yes, absolutely. We've been talking to the fellows from the Lunacy podcast. They cover Minnesota United, and we will be having them on either Wednesday or Thursday. I'm going to nail that down soon. And they actually invited me to be a guest on their show tomorrow evening. So I will keep you guys posted on that. Keep an eye on my socials so you guys can jump in and join the conversation there as well. Ruji, can you bring that up again, Brian? Tell me, what does he say?
That New York guy left early because of Fat Joe.
Oh, that's a low blow, man. Poor Rob. Oh man. Well, Tommy, hey, once again, thank you so much for joining us. You guys can find me again as Edgar Nags on Twitter, Blue Sky, on Instagram. You can find News Across the
OnlyFans?
Galaxy at what was that?
OnlyFans?
You
You guys have your
Chewy's
an OnlyFans
actually
page? Or
our other producer Chewy. He actually has that. It's something that we do for Nag After Dark.
Oh.
So yeah, there is a thing. It's called Nag After Dark, and it's it's a special thing. And sometimes it happens at the Nag studio. We have a couch there, and things get a little interesting.
The Nag
But
couch.
a very interesting couch.
You
So
put
yeah,
the
you guys can follow us.
the light that was it what's the light the light where you could see stains. I don't want to look at that couch.
Oh
No.
dear God, a black light? No, thank you.
Yeah, no black light on that couch. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys can find us as News Across the Galaxy, nag_news on Twitter, also on YouTube, Insta. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to Tommy and for Mark for coming on. I'm pretty sure we're probably going to be seeing one of the two of you in MLS Cup because, man, it's just meant to be, right? It's meant to be. So, from me, from Bryant, from Tommy, Mark, and everyone from News Across the Galaxy, thank you so much. Keep on nagging, and as always, we pound for life. This is out, Bryant.
See ya.